All right, gentlemen, welcome back to yet again another weekly episode of the Blind Pig. Unfortunately, this one isn't coming off nearly as exciting of an event as the last one. Oh, forgot to turn my light on. So, before we jump into what was, I figured I would share a statistical anomaly. I don't know who's on Twitter, but I came across this from our good friend from back in the day, Bang, who I believe most of us actually know or at least have conversed with. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, we know John.
Statistical anomalies. I'm reading straight off of Twitter. Our O-line is tied for number 1 in pass protection with only 3 sacks. Taylor Heineke's completion percentage is near the bottom of this number. I don't know what that means, but is better than Brady, Rodgers, and is just below Herbert. His yards per pass is better than Brady, Cousins, and Rodgers. If you would have bet me 6 months ago that coming into it, we would have a quarterback that's ranking near the top of the league in some of the better statistical quarterback categories, and our defense would be at the bottom, who would have taken that bet?
Yeah, those numbers seem a little misleading though, right? I mean, the pass pro part is all based, I guess, on sacks only, because the first 2 games we were pressured like crazy. In the first game we were against San Diego, we had no pro at all. Got better against the Giants, and it was okay against Buffalo, I guess, except late when they were up by 20 and pinned their ears back and just came after Taylor. But the numbers surprised me, the passing production numbers, but I don't know, watching him against Buffalo throwing late into traffic and throwing bad picks was a big step back. So I don't know what those numbers really say.
Well,
how much of a pass do you give him for pressing late in the game where we're getting our doors?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, but
I give him a big pass because, and again, the quarterback's always going to take heat when you play like that and you lose like that, and they should, and that's part of learning what it is to be the starter. I mean, the backup can suck or be a hero, and that's what you expect, but the starter, you expect more. I feel like, first of all, we know he's going to press when you're 2 to 3 touchdowns down. I mean, I think one of the very first drives we were moving the ball down the field, and then that Logan Thomas, I'll call it a fumble, but really it was just a great defensive play punching that ball out. That just took, right then when I saw that, I thought this is just going to be, that's going to set the tone for the day. And it kind of did. We didn't rush the ball. The running backs ran it 15 times. But again, what are you going to do when you're down by 2 to 3 touchdowns? There's no offensive coordinator in the league that's going to say, hey, I think if we rush it 30 or 40 times, we'll win this game. It's going to become a shootout to a certain extent. He didn't get a lot of help from the wide receivers. I haven't watched the game again. I didn't have the stomach for that, but I know there were quite a few drops. And again, some of that is maybe passing the location of the ball, certainly, getting it there on time. But we are only 14 of 24 with the wide receiver group on receptions, which is not good. And even McLaurin was only 4 for 7. And if I have to watch Cam Sims drop another ball that hits him in the hands in my lifetime, that's one too many. And I know I clamored for him to come in last week, but I don't know how many chances he's going to get to show that he can be capable. I know he only got, I think, two balls thrown his way, but he dropped one of them, and it was, should have been an easy reception. So, and I think the other thing, anytime Tressway and Dustin Hopkins are your stars of the game, that doesn't bode well. And they pretty much, other than the big play by Antonio, the punting and Hopkins recovering his own kick. That could have been the play that turned things around. But I mean, I think it just kind of came apart after that. And I just wanted to mention one stat that I honed in on, and that was that the Bills punted twice in the entire game. So I don't know what the record is for a Washington.
It's got to be close.
Team, but it can't be much lower than that. So that just tells you what the game was like. I mean, we were on defense all day long. We couldn't keep a drive going. We were 2 of 11 on third downs versus the Bills, who were 9 of 15. It was just one of those days where we pretty much got pummeled by a better team all day long. I don't think there's anything. I can't think of anything else to say about it. but you guys might.
I give Heineke a total pass for what happened in I don't know, the fourth quarter. You know, the dude's a gamer, and he didn't want to be embarrassed. And I totally get that. At that point in time, you're playing high risk, high reward football, hoping that you kind of break the bank and do something miraculous. And if you're going to do something miraculous, you're going to take chances. You're going to take risks that you wouldn't normally take.
The
That's
response
just,
to that,
you know, that's
Bob, is
just all there is to
that
it.
first pick he threw was in the first quarter. It's what put us down 21 to.
Yeah.
That was
And-
the one that I'm having a hard time passing up on. And it wasn't so much an aggressive play. It was just a bad read and a bad pass.
But you know, as I've read a couple of places this week on Twitter and online, every quarterback does that. Brady does that every now and again. So does Rodgers. I mean, you know, every quarterback we've ever had here has done that, you know, periodically. And it's part of playing the game, and it's gonna happen. Did it just this week? It just so happened to be a pile-on situation. You know, our problem is not under center at the moment.
No, we have bigger problems. That I agree with.
You know, but you know, now if there's a ray of sunshine, how long has it been in Washington since we could say that we had bigger problems than the guy that was calling the signals and taking the snaps? You know, I mean, I consider that an actual positive, because that means if we can clean up the rest of the trash, we've got an opportunity to actually do something. It doesn't mean I think we're necessarily going to. I got to tell you that pod where we all picked our winners for the whole season and who was doing what is not aging well, and I'm beginning to wish I'd sat that one out, because I made some pretty bold predictions that are like, you know, I just look horrible for at the moment. But
That's what that delete button's for.
I'm telling you, and we may need to do that. But it was, you know, I sat there on Sunday, and I thought, if there is no way in the world that I would have predicted that this was how we would melt down this season. That we would melt down at some point in time, sure, yeah, you know, I mean, it's a young team, it's kind of a given, but I just sat there and stared dumbfounded as we blew coverage after coverage after coverage, didn't get home time and time again. I mean, you know, Josh Allen, we made Josh Allen look like
Justin
MVP.
Herbert.
Oh, well, I was going further than that, but you know, I mean, at one point in time during the game, even the announcers comment on the fact that he was like 80% for the day, or 79.8% or something.
Yeah, his lifetime average is 56, and I think he was over 70 at least.
Yeah, and we were talking, and all I could think of was, we talked about that on, you know, this last week, and all of us commented on the fact that, you know, this guy's not that accurate. And lo and behold, today he is that accurate. It just
I
felt
heard some
like
on the
everything
radio
he
today
threw
that
up came
he
down and-
broke 300 yards 6 minutes into the third quarter.
Yeah.
They had a great scheme. He got the ball out really quick early, and we kept breaking down in the secondary and not covering anybody. And then when he had time, we did the same thing. We didn't cover anybody then either.
Well, and I think that's the book on the 2021 Washington defense is, you know, 3 and 5 step drops, get the ball out in under 2.5 seconds, and this defense is in trouble.
And the time of possession is killing us. It's been killing us all year, but especially last week they had like 11 more minutes of offense than us. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's like 30% more time with the ball in the hands of your quarterback. And that's, I mean, unless the other team's playing really badly and ineptly, that's hard. You're not going to win many games when you give up that much time, and your defense is getting gassed on top of that.
Derek, you asked that thing about TH4. What's your take on that? You had some time to think about it.
I have to continue to remind myself that the guy has literally started 4 football games.
And never a road game, by the way.
Correct.
Well, except in Tampa, right?
No, that was a home game. We hosted that playoff game.
Oh, I kept trying to make it worse than it was, or make it better than it was. Never mind.
No, Derek, it's, you know, it's fine not to remember that. The dude generally speaking, doesn't play like it's his fourth game.
I
And,
agree.
and the reality is it's not his fourth game between his ears. He's been studying this offense for how many years now? He knows this offense better than anybody else on the team except Scott Turner. That's the reality.
Well, and
Well, you could
another,
argue he knows it better than you could argue half of us know it better than Scott Turner, but
we're going to have to go around and around on that one of these days, you guys. Everyone beats up on Scotty Turner. I'm not seeing it. Not like you guys do.
So I want to throw a question to you guys, and I'm going to ask Paul to comment on this. All day long, the last 2 days on social media, all I've heard is game manager, game manager, game manager, and there's been back and forth. They asked Heineke about it today. They asked Rivera about it. I think the last 2 days, like, what does that mean? And I think it all started, it really gained traction because Rivera made some comments about how he would rather Heineke be a game manager, quote unquote.
I think he said more of a game manager. I don't think he said a game manager.
But I mean, I think, and I'm not saying that we should read too much into that. I'm just saying that I think the media picked right up on that, and it's kind of become a little bit of a thing. And I mean, I have my opinion about it, but I don't know what you guys think about that, because I think that's a mistake. I think what makes him potentially special is exactly not being a game manager in the way that I would define it. But what do you think, Paul?
From what I've seen in Taylor Heineke, in the limited play that he's had with our team, to me, he seems like one of those guys that is most dangerous when he's a little bit off script. When he can move around, when he can make some plays with his legs, when he can move the defense around and be unpredictable, that's when I think he's in his most natural element. And I think there was one of his 2 interceptions this past weekend against Buffalo. You can literally see it where he had a clear opportunity to take off and run with it, but it almost seems as though they've shackled the guy and told him make plays from the pocket. And I think we're going to regret that decision, because you're going to see him make some of the mistakes that he made this weekend going forward, if that's what they continue to instruct them to do. He needs to be able to rely on his instincts. And I think at this point, he's just, afraid of being who he really is as a result of what he's being asked to do by the coaches.
That's fair. Another thing about Taylor we haven't talked about yet is there are now 4 games of film on the guy, including a blueprint from Buffalo last week on how to defend us. We will see Atlanta doing the same things, trying to do the same things that Buffalo did. We're going to find out more about Taylor, right? As the league finds out about him, takes away the things he looks comfortable with and forces him to do what he's not. This is a big week for him coming up.
Yeah, it is a big
And
week.
I actually don't see this as a particularly big week. Atlanta doesn't have the athletes that Buffalo has.
They don't.
They just don't. Now the week after next.
Well, but he needs to be able to make plays then against Atlanta is what I'm saying. It's a big week for him.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right in that. And I think he's going to. And honestly, I mean, he made some plays against Buffalo, to be completely fair. But here's my thing about that whole game manager comment, John. I don't think we've got the defense right now to afford to have a game manager under center. What game is there to manage when you're down by 3 touchdowns?
Right.
There is no game to manage. We need him playing at his Favre-like gunslinger. I mean, because that's really kind of what he is, right? Although I see him as a little more controlled than Brett Favre. I mean, we all knew Favre was completely capable of like a 4 interception game where he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn door. Granted, the book is still very thin on Taylor, but I haven't seen that kind of a tendency yet from him.
No, not to force it in like Brett would force it in because he had that ridiculous arm. Taylor doesn't have that ridiculous arm. He's got a pretty good arm, but he doesn't have the arm where he can throw off a bad platform off his back foot. That's going to be a problem for him. If that's the biggest thing I see, not his size, not anything else. It's that when it comes right down to it, you've got to be able to gun it into some tight spots. And I'm not sure he's got that gun. We'll have to see.
I think you see that exacerbated when I noticed a couple of times he held on to the ball and held on to the ball and held on to the ball, where normally, as Paul was talking about, you'd see him exploit the run and take off through a hole. Now he's holding on. And you just know good things generally don't happen when you do that, especially if you don't have that rocket arm, because guys are trying to get open, but it's small windows after 2 or 3 or 4 seconds. So if you don't have a rifle arm, it's like a pick waiting to happen. And I think that's, and then the whole element of, I really want to take off, but I know they don't want me doing a lot of that, and like trying to process that at the same time, I think just adds a layer of, it's not instinctive at that point. And anyway.
So the compromise is he takes off, but he protects himself like Russ Wilson does. Wilson's been scrambling, I don't know how many times a game, but he does it routinely, but he never takes a hit. He knows how to get down. He goes out of bounds. Taylor doesn't need to be diving headfirst at the pylon every week. He's not going to survive it.
Well, and then he did it again this week in the middle of the field going after that first down. I mean, he got it, but I held my breath.
Yes.
You know, he started into that and I was like, no. Oh, he got the first down. Now, as long as he gets up, we're good.
Is that the one that looked like he was dinged? At one point he got up. I don't know if you all saw it, but I saw his body language was like, it looked like he had hurt himself. And I thought, here we go. But he kept playing. So if he did, he sucked it up.
The one that worried me was when he was rolling back right towards that same pylon, and at about the 4-yard line, he thought, whether am I going to dive or not, and he got planted.
Yeah.
That was the one that stuck out to me.
Yeah.
I think, and Mark, you know, we should have an offensive, a coordinator pod or something, because there are some differing opinions on here. I've seen some things. I went hard in the paint 2 games ago against the coordinators, and I still stand by it. I wonder what they're doing at times, and it's not necessarily that they don't know how to call. It's that it seems like they're calling it for a different team. My struggle with Del Rio is you're trusting 4 guys who should win their matchup consistently to win their matchup, but they're not, and you're not doing anything about it. So yes, the players are to blame, because they're not winning their matchup. Chase Young's not winning his matchup. Payne was winning his matchup all game, but you're not consistently controlling the line of scrimmage with 4 guys. You're blitzing, because I've seen the statistics that say that you're blitzing. We're top 5 in number of blitzes. When? I haven't seen it. I know it's not on 3rd and 15 on the first drive of the game, when you literally take control of the game right there. Now, where it goes after that, who knows? But we hold them into 3rd and 15 from their own 20. You punt, or they punt. We get the ball around midfield, and we could be talking about a completely different outcome of this game. Just on that, you set the tone right there. But Scott Turner, I've seen a lot of things over the last couple weeks that show the game plan scheming open. I've seen plenty of film saying that the scheme is working. Guys are open. We're just missing them. There was a play. Heineke hit De'Ami Brown for like 22 yards off to the left side, and I think it might have been against the Chargers. But Carter was running free in the middle of the field. And if he would have just lobbed it, I mean, I could have thrown it. If he would have lobbed it, he walks into the end zone for like a 75-yard touchdown.
That one breakdown was kind of eye-opening. I watched that same video, Derek. There were about a half a dozen plays that were there. The guys were schemed really wide open, and either Taylor didn't see him, or he's a 6-footer, and there was a 6'6" guy in his path, and he couldn't see him. But yeah, there were some gets there that we weren't getting.
So I say all that, and then I add to this point that Taylor Heineke's old college coach was on the radio, and he was asked about how is Heineke in practice? Why couldn't he become a starter? Why has it taken 8 years for him to become a professional starter in 2 different leagues? And his response was, Taylor Heineke in practice is not Taylor Heineke in the game. In practice, he's working on what he sucks at, so he looks bad at it. And he said it consistently. He's working on the ability to play from the pocket and not use his legs, because he knows he can't. That's what he needs to get better at. So I'm wondering if maybe the coaches are in his ear, but I wonder how much Taylor's in his own ear. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? How much is he telling himself, I've got to get better at this if we want a chance to be consistently good?
They asked him the game manager question today, Heineke, and he said, I don't view that as a bad thing. Like that's what a quarterback has to do, is manage the game and not make,
Right.
I mean, so I
So I
think you
wonder if,
100% right about that.
I wonder if the game manager thing came up, and I think Ron Rivera might be kind of right that he needs to be more of a game manager, not a game manager. And I mean, we can parse words there, but I think maybe what he wants him to do is to trust the guys that are on the other side of the ball. You know what I'm saying? And if the play dictates that you break the pocket and you throw it away instead of, how many times, one thing that infuriates me, and I don't get it from him, is he'll scramble and he'll run 19 yards across the field just to get back to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? Once you realize you don't have the corner, throw it into the seats.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
think that's yep.
And I'm not saying it's a stupid small knock. He still gets there. He stays safe. He doesn't get hurt. He goes out of bounds. He doesn't take on a linebacker that weighs 100 pounds more than him. But the point still remains that you understand, you can tell within a play, this is a lost cause. Dump the ball, get rid of it, and come back. Don't force yourself to run across the field. Trust your eyes. Trust your vision.
What about
Trust
all
the
the
play.
analysts that talk about guys like Mahomes and Herbert and Wilson who scramble like that, but they keep their eyes downfield? And they're
And-
looking for someone to break open. Dak Prescott makes a living at that.
A lot of them do. And
I mean,
that
if-
is probably a part of Taylor's game that we are not utilizing. And then I look at the wide receivers. Who's coming back to the ball? When you see him scrambling right, who's going across the field?
Yeah.
Who's tracking the quarterback? So that's the other question that I come into. But I say all of that to say it might not hurt Heineke to get a little bit of that game manager in him. And when 1 and 2 aren't there, instead of thinking to run, where's your check down? Where's McKissick? I made a point, and we can move on to the Buffalo. We kind of already did, but I made a point, and I wonder where's it coming from. Antonio Gibson caught a screen and went 75 yards for a touchdown. He had one target after that. It was on the following drive, and he dropped a wide open touchdown. Now, the throw from Taylor could have been better, but it was a catchable ball. He walks into the end zone. I didn't see him targeted again after that. I don't get it. That's where I have the problem.
They've done the same thing with McKissick. McKissick has done nothing but produce in the last 2 games, especially. Every time he gets the ball, he does something positive with it. He'll make an 8-yard reception and they sit him down. I don't understand that.
So Mark, that's where my struggle with the coordinator is. Yeah, there's guys schemed open 30 yards downfield, but we have weapons all the way across. Why aren't we getting more passes to Gibson? Why aren't we getting more of that? And I'm not saying it, like the play that got Fitzpatrick hurt, it was telegraphed, and it made me want to pull what little hair I've got out, because McKissick went running across in a jet sweep action, and as soon as he crossed Fitzpatrick's face, I said it's a swing pass. And as soon as Fitzpatrick dropped back, he turned, and the defender was there, and he got crunched because McKissick had vacated the left side of the line, and it was blatantly going the opposite way, so he was blindsided. So it's little things like that I look at, and I'm like, you're telling them what you want to do before you do it. And it's happening on both sides of the ball. Are guys executing as well as they should? No. But what are we doing to compensate for that?
I think we need to invite Norv on the next podcast and see what he's talking to his son about.
You talked about McKissick, John. I don't know if you guys watched the Monday night game between Dallas and Philadelphia. There was nothing else on TV and everybody else went to bed. So I turned it on and just let it play, right? Because 2 division rivals, let's see what's going on. And of course, Dallas is the local team. So if I'm going to talk to my friends, I kind of got to know what's going on. They've got a stupidly expensive running back in their backfield, Zeke Elliott. They're giving Tony Pollard nearly as many carries as Zeke Elliott's got right now. They've got 2 back packages to have Elliott and Pollard in the game together. And right now, Dallas is the only team in the National Football League with 2 backs in the top 15.
Yeah.
And I don't see any reason right now why we couldn't have 2 backs in the top 15. I don't think we're using Antonio Gibson enough correctly, although frankly, I sick to my stomach when he dropped that ball that hit him in the hands on the goal line. That should have been a walk-in. You know, I don't. He and Cam Sims both, right? They dropped balls that were just stupid easy. My daughters could have caught either one of those balls, and we've never been to the park and played catch. So, you know, it just.
Well, they had
But
flagged for using their hands, you know, they're supposed to kick it.
I guess, yeah. Well, and my girls are pretty good at kicking it too. Although the older one was thinking goalie for a while. But I don't understand the use of the personnel. To be just brutal about it. You're right. McKissick looks good every time he's in the game. Why aren't we giving him more of the ball? Not that Gibson is not looking good, but man, running backs wear out in this league in a hurry.
A weapon is a weapon is a weapon is a weapon. I don't care what number they wear, what position they play. A weapon is a weapon. Use it.
So, you know, and to that end, I want to flip it to the other side of the ball for a second and talk about the other coordinator. Bostic's not a pass pro linebacker. I don't understand. I don't understand why we have him in. It can't be any worse to play the rookie who's a better athlete. Play the rookie and let him learn. I would rather give those yards up to Jamin Davis than give them up to a veteran like a 9-year guy like Bostic, who's not going to learn anything new at this point in time. Right. You know, but we've got an athlete. We drafted an athlete in the first round. And I sat here Monday night and I watched Micah Parsons just positively dismantle Philadelphia almost single-handedly on some plays. And I thought, we've got that kind of an athlete. Granted, he doesn't have the same experience from college that Micah Parsons does, who started his entire career at Penn State. But the point is, he's every bit as good an athlete. Why do we keep taking him off the field when he could be learning something? It's not like we're stopping anybody with the guys we're putting in there.
Yeah. Amen.
We're not stopping anybody. I agree with you, Bob, with the guys that we're putting in there. But when you hear Rivera talk about, for instance, a guy like Bostic, one of the things that always seems to come up is that he knows how to play. He's smart. He's got that veteran presence. And you think of our defense, we don't have those veteran leaders, those guys who have been in the league and seen it all. But the problem with a guy like Bostic is, like you said, he just can't make plays. And I think we're so short on that veteran leadership on the defensive side of the ball that I think a guy like Rivera gravitates to putting Bostic in because of those reasons and those reasons only. And you think back to a year ago, we had a guy like Thomas Davis here. Was he serving any purpose for us? Probably not, outside of potentially a leadership point of view.
Yeah, but if that's the case, then you give Kerrigan the contract and you bring him back, because he's
maybe Adam Archuleta's available because he was chock full of leadership too.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I was over that with like that. We've had so many guys like that we brought in that really didn't have the top tier talent to play the position and are kind of one dimensional. And then that we just watch them get exploited all game long. I don't know. I mean, my thing is, are we trying to make the playoffs or not? Like, I get we're trying to, grow the organization and get the team to understand how to play football at a professional level, but you don't want to piss away your entire season while you do it at the same time. So I don't understand that either.
Yeah. So who do you go say? So John Bostic, or who you want, Bostic or Davis on the field? Then we're not winning with Bostic.
How many snaps?
29th in defense with Bostic. We're giving up points. We're getting crushed. Like to Bob's point. Okay, let's at least lose with a purpose. You know what I'm saying?
Does anyone know how many snaps Davis is getting week by week? If they're what they're adding to it?
I want to say 27%.
It's not a ton.
It's not a ton, but I'll tell you what. Again, on Sunday he flashed a couple of times. He's not getting a lot of reps, but when the ball comes his way, the dude seems to make a play.
Yeah, I think
flashed.
I went back and watched the condensed version of the game again just to confirm some thoughts I had the first time I saw it, and maybe to actually see something different. But I still see, and this, I hate to circle back to what we were talking about in the preseason, but I mean, we were all concerned about our linebacking core. It doesn't look like it's changed much to me. And really all we did in the offseason was we drafted a rookie who started one good year in college. I was never expecting Davis to come in and be an impact player early. He might be by the end of the year, but the kid it's complete OJT. And I would think if he looked like an impact player in practice and they thought he was ready, I think he'd be out there. I think they're trying to limit exposure, but I guess when we're talking about, I know, let me just finish the thought because I'll lose it
Yeah.
otherwise. We're talking about Del Rio, and this is to me the biggest mystery of the 2021 Washington team, right? Nobody understands why the defense is looking as bad as it does. It looks disorganized. We're moving people around. Landon Collins snaps per game have gone down like this while Cam curls go up. So we've already made that one change apparently. I would like us to try to see what our best thoughts are and what the hell's going on with Jack. We know he's a better coach than this.
Well, Derek
Um,
made a comment on the board today, kind of along this line, without getting too verbose about it, but it was almost like, are we doing things on the defensive side of the ball to make a point with the guys that are out there to like impose, like, for instance, why are we only rushing 4 a ton of the time when 4 is not getting to the quarterback? Maybe that's just in their mind that we're going to get pressure with 4 if it takes us all year long. And guys start doing what they're supposed to be doing because the talent is there to get pressure with 4. And so we're going to take our lumps. We're not going to like abandon the system and abandon the plan because it's not working right now. I don't know, but that's the only thing I can think of is that they're trying to set up a structure and a format that's maybe is going to pay off down as the year progresses, even if there's some growing pains along the way. I just don't know. Because the other explanation is that we just aren't very good. And that, I don't know, we have too much talent to not be very good, I
I
think.
think what we spend a lot of time talking about the 4 guys rushing. We spend a whole lot less time, and we spend less time talking about it, and I hear less about it from the talking heads about what the hell's going on in the secondary.
Yeah.
Why we all see it right every week. The quarterback, even when we do get pressure, he scrambles and finds 23 or that 3rd and 15 to start the game that we were talking about, Derek. We got a little pressure on the outside. Allen stepped up into the middle. He stepped up in the pocket. There was nothing there. He had time. And then he finds a guy 23 yards downfield on a 3rd and 15 who has no one within 5 yards of him. That just can't happen with a playoff worthy defense. I don't know what's going on in the back. So someone needs to figure that out quick.
I read a piece today that it kind of made a certain amount of sense to me that I really hadn't been thinking about. Last year Fuller was arguably our best cornerback. This year he's arguably our worst cornerback. But last year he played predominantly on the outside. He didn't play the slot man. He wasn't the nickel guy. Yeah, that's what he did when he was here as a rookie before we shipped him off to Kansas City. He was our nickel guy. He went to Kansas City. He played on the outside the whole time he was there. And he played on the outside when he came back here. Now we've shifted him back inside. We let go of Moreland, who was our slot guy. And we brought in St. Just. Well, St. Just is playing some pretty good ball, but he's got his moments. He's a rookie. And let's face it, right? Rookie cornerbacks, there's a learning curve there, just like there is with rookie wide receivers. And periodically, a really good veteran savvy wide receiver is going to take St. Just to the cleaners. So we know that's going to happen. But
we got Jackson, who's new. He's new to this scheme.
Jackson's new to the scheme, but he's,
I'm just saying we've totally flipped around with the chemistry of who we had out there last year.
Right. Exactly. We've turned it all on its head. On top of that, Landon Collins is effectively a new player at this point in time because he was in for 4 games last year? 5 games? I mean, he didn't play. He played less than half the season.
Well, he's playing himself out of a job right now. I lost the stat, but he's down to about a quarter of the snaps in the 3rd game than he was at the beginning.
Well, fans are pining for Jeremy Reeves now. I mean, it's like,
and I'd love to see Reeves in there at this point in time. I love the idea of signing Collins. When we signed Collins, I thought he was going to be a great pickup for us. And it really hasn't worked out for various and sundry reasons. And, You know, again, I saw a headline earlier just in the last 2 or 3 days about Rivera talking about moving on from veteran guys that aren't cutting it. And all I could think of was, so why is Landon Collins still here? Because
it doesn't make any sense to cut him.
it doesn't make financial sense to cut him. But from the evidence on the field, Derek, it doesn't make any sense to suit him up every week.
Well, before we
Let's
go any,
face it, we're not
sorry,
winning
before we
with
move on, I
veteran
just do want
guys
to
at the moment.
circle back. Okay, so Bob, you talked about Micah Parsons. Do you know where Micah Parsons lined up the majority of his snaps this week?
DE.
Do you know
Defensive
why?
end.
Do you
Yeah.
guys know what's going on in Dallas at the moment?
Yeah,
Yes.
Lawrence was out, and
They're in shambles at defensive end, so they took
Both
their
of the
rookie.
both of the starting defensive ends are out at the moment, and so Parsons was lining up at defensive end.
Yep.
And Philadelphia had no answer for him. They also had no answer for the guy whose name we couldn't pronounce when Mark was talking about defensive tackles for Dallas. Do you remember that? The
in
draft
Dukeway. Yeah.
Yeah, the draftee out of UCLA. They had no answer for him either. He was in the backfield as much as Parsons was.
My point with that, and my point carries over to Collins with that, is are we using these guys correctly? Now, I'm not saying I want Jamin Davis to line up at defensive end, but why are we asking John Bostic to cover? Right? Why are we asking Landon Collins to be a free safety? Landon Collins wasn't a free safety when he came here.
No, you're right.
We paid him a lot of money to be something, and that's fine. But we're not even using him for what he's getting paid to do. That is literally like going and buying a NASCAR and then getting mad when it doesn't compete in Formula One.
You're not wrong.
Okay, so is he playing himself out of a job? Sure. Is that correct? I don't think so. Josh Norman came over here with a reputation. He was very good in zone. He feasted with a better than average pass rush, and we asked him to play man-to-man against the best wide receivers in the NFL and got mad when he got beat. That
True.
isn't what he does. Landon Collins is not a center fielder. He never will be. It's never going to happen. So, hey, we have a problem. Our four guys aren't getting home, and we're getting beat up in the middle of the field. We have a safety who is very good around the line of scrimmage, who is known for that and has been an all-pro in that position. Yet we say, don't worry about that. I want you to go 30 yards downfield and cover the likes of some of the best wide receivers in the league. Meanwhile, we watch Bostic get torched by tight ends on a regular basis. Like, this again is where I come back to the coordinators. Are we asking the guys to do what they're best at, and who's to blame there?
I don't know, but I know Del Rio knows how to coach, and I know he's not stupid. So I just have to think there's some, whether it's twisted logic or not, there's some kind of logic driving what we're seeing. I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the season, and I'm right there with you as far as being frustrated, but I don't know what we can do about it. I feel like there's got to be some kind of philosophical viewpoint logic driving what we're putting out there. And
we're talking about Fuller, and he's another one. I'm watching him in the game. Fuller was really good as our slot corner when we were in the Minuski defense. We were playing on the line of scrimmage. Our outside corners were getting torched because they couldn't keep up, but we were still playing up in your face line of scrimmage. That's where he thrives. He thrives in a phone booth. He's the guy that wants to be, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
He's on the line. He's playing the slot receiver, and he's able to jam. He's able to play that physical, control his area. We're asking him to play. He lined up in the slot 9 yards off the ball on a couple plays. Your slot corner is 9 yards off the ball. He was deeper than the safety.
So I vote we move on to Atlanta because at least that's
Paul hasn't said. Paul said about 6 words today. So
I agree with everything you're saying, but the fact is, the things that we're complaining about right now today in regards to Del Rio, we've been having those same complaints for 3 weeks. I think they're putting a lot of pressure on our defensive line to do their job. And I think they're firmly of the belief that when those guys do their job, everything else will fall into place. But I mean, how long are you going to wait for that to happen? You know, you can't wait a half a season. The season will be lost by that point. So yeah, something needs to be done.
Well, I think we were talking about coordinators and why are people being deployed like they are? Why are targets going to some players and not others? And I mean, I've been beating this drum for 20 years on the internet with you esteemed gentlemen and others. When I'm watching a game on TV, I think I know what the target was or maybe what the first option was, but I have no fucking clue.
Fair. We have no idea what actually happened.
We don't know what the audible might have been at the line. We don't know if the right guard whiffed on his block and somebody came fast enough where the guy couldn't go through his second progression. He had to dump it. We really don't know. And I don't want to sound like Jim Mora, but what I am frustrated by is we know offensively, none of this has surprised me yet. We look like a young offense with a guy that's just figuring out how to play quarterback. Defensively is where I'm mystified because we've got a guy who's been a proven top coordinator in the league for a long time and brought this defense along a long way last year. We added a bunch of pieces and shuffled some around, and it looks like we're right back to square one. That surprised me, and I don't understand it. And I don't think that it's just that, and John, you were talking about the idea that, you know, they're trying to, we're going to do it this way and we're going to keep doing it till we get it right. I don't know that an NFL coordinator has that option. There's too much counting on these games and his job and his head coach's job for them to play around like that, not in the regular season. What I'm hoping is that there's some combination of all these factors. He's trying to get the personnel groupings right, and he's trying to get certain players to do their jobs. I think it's going to be a combination of things, and I'm afraid it might take half a season again to get their shit together. And if that happens this year with the schedule we have, that's going to be the end of this as a playoff type season. It's going to be another learning year.
I don't think Ron Rivera is telling Jack Del Rio a damn thing about how to run the defense. I'll say that much, because Jack Del Rio is not your ordinary DC. He's been a head coach. So I think that could be a good thing and that could be a bad thing, because I think sometimes a head coach needs to say, hey, we need to win some games so you can prove your point against
what it gives.
Let's prove this game with a 4-game lead. How about that? Let's do that.
You know, I got curious. You're right. I mean, I know what's going on as far as the 4 guys up front. We're asking them to do the job, but I was just wondering what the sack numbers look like for guys outside those last year. Bostic had 3, Cole Holcomb had 2.5, Cam Curl had 2, Landon Collins had 2, Jeremy Reeves had 1. Pierre
Collins had 2, by the way, in like 4 games.
Right, exactly. 2 and yeah. I mean, he hardly played. Games played 7. He had 2 in 7 games.
Okay, still.
Jeremy Reeves had 1. Pierre Louis had 1. Jimmy Moreland had a half. So we had guys chipping in from all over the back 7. Granted, the bulk of the sacks came from those guys on the defensive line, but of the starters, only Sweat and Young were at the top. Sweat had 9, Young had 7.5. Then it's Ryan Kerrigan who's gone with 5.5. Tim Settle with 5. Then you had Deron Payne back in with 3. And then Jonathan Allen only had 2. Well, Jonathan Allen's the leading sacker on the team at the moment with 3 for the year after 3 games. So something has changed scheme-wise, because we were coming with more than just, I mean, I've only seen a couple of times this year that we brought more than just the front 4. And amazingly enough, one of those, Fuller got home. I mean, and it was clear cut. I think everybody knew at the snap that Fuller was going to get the sack. It was pretty clear from the first step that play was over. And I don't understand why we're not doing more of that, unless, one, John's right, and there's a deeper plan in play and we're trying to do something deep and thoughtful here, or 2, Jack Del Rio's just arrogant and thinks he knows better than everybody else. And let's face it, you're dealing with some really big egos at this level. So and if you follow Del Rio on Twitter, you know the dude's got an ego.
Yeah, he does.
Bob, if I'm not mistaken, that instant where you were referencing that we sent Kendall Fuller, I think that was against the Giants, ironically, and I think that was against Daniel Jones. When you think of it, of the 3 quarterbacks we've played, Daniel Jones is far and away the weakest of the bunch.
You're right.
To me, I kind of get a sense so far this season that on defense, we're playing a little bit scared. We're playing these upper echelon quarterbacks and we're kind of afraid to get after them. And I mentioned it last week when we talked about Buffalo. I said, we got to go in there and, just swing for the fences, go after Josh Allen. We didn't do it. I think we're playing with a sense of hesitancy and it's hurting us.
All right. So
Atlanta.
now we can move on a little bit. And I posed this question, well, I kind of threw this out on BGO. I wonder, and to transition in, I wonder, and I'm hoping, the eternal optimist in me is hoping that we see a different game plan this week, because we're looking at Matt Ryan, who's a statue. Matt Ryan's not going to break the pocket and run for 30. Okay. So he's not going to be able to roll out and beat you and make, buy enough time for Stephon Diggs to break free. So is it possible? Is there even an iota of a chance that we see a different game plan this week and that we do see more pressure? We do see more people coming because of the fact that if we bring 6, we know where Ryan's going to be. Where if you bring 6, you don't know where Allen's going to end up, and then your back end gets more exposed than they already have been.
I actually wrote down something about this today, Derek. I went and watched the Atlanta Giants game, the condensed today, because I wanted to look at Matt Ryan. I've been watching him since he was at Boston College. And early in his career, I thought this guy was going to turn out to be like the real deal. He at this point,
the real deal.
He was early on. And I thought, what I mean is I thought he was going to be the real deal in perpetuity. The guy I've watched today and in highlights so far this year, that's a broken man. He's not only a statue, he has got some serious happy feet. The Giants were effectively bringing people up the middle and getting in his face and people around his legs, and he doesn't want to be there. He is getting the ball out instantly. He's throwing it off the wrong foot. He's throwing inaccurately. He's throwing late and into traffic. He doesn't want to get hit. So what I'm hoping is that they do exactly what you just said. I hope we plan to bring people curling in and coming from every direction, but I want them coming up in his face. I want him to see bodies around him and I want to put some hands on him. I don't think he beats us if we can't just let him stand in a pocket because he's still got that ridiculous arm and he can still torch you that way, but they can't let him get comfortable. The Giants did a great job of that.
So we are
an MVP, but he's a ridiculous defensive meltdown away from a ring. He was up 20-3 against the Patriots.
And that may be part of the problem at this point in two. There is no telling how that impacted the poor guy mentally. I don't honestly.
He did it more than you could ask him to do.
I don't know how you recover from that, to be honest with you. I'm not sure I could, but
you know what Atlanta fans would tell you, Derek, that he arguably helped lose that game by holding on to the rock too long and taking that sack against Hightower, that fumble that turned things around.
Hold on. Talk about the 25 points before that, before you come talk to me about that fumble.
They should have won that game going away. I'm just saying, when he has also had a history of making some mistakes. My whole point wasn't about Ben. He has been a great quarterback. He's not that guy today.
Right.
And I want us to exploit that with our game plan. And I want us to get after the guy right in his face.
So on the season, after 3 games, he's been sacked 7 times for 51 yards and losses. He's thrown 3 picks in 3 games against 4 TDs. He's got 1 fumble. He has 5 rushing attempts for 10 yards. Josh Allen had more than that in the first quarter.
Yeah. But those are probably all QB sneaks.
So that all sounds great, but here's some numbers to be concerned about. And I don't know how this all works in the scheme of the universe, but we have a winning record against the Falcons lifetime as a franchise. But in the last First of all, we have a 4-6-1 road record in Atlanta. We have lost 6 straight times to them. The last time we won against Atlanta anywhere was in 2003. That year was the Space Columbia exploded. We finished mapping the human genome. Shock and awe, if you remember that. That was unleashed on Baghdad. Saddam Hussein got captured. And Matt Ryan started college football at Boston College. That's how long it's been since we beat Atlanta. So I hope they're not going in there with the attitude that we have, which is we should sack him 7 times and win the game easily. Because
But one of my favorite victory memories in the history of Washington sports was against the Falcons.
Seat
The
cushions.
seat cushion game will go down
game.
forever.
How pathetic are we that our best highlight memories are from 25 years ago?
Hey,
God
no,
damn
there
it.
was nothing better than taking MC Hammer and shoving it to him. It was the greatest thing ever.
Word.
Less pathetic than the Jets, who have to go back to Namath.
it's a shame it's not a home game because we probably could have campaigned with Jason Wright to get some
Get
seat cushions.
yellow seat cushions.
Yeah.
This is no joke, right? This is arguably the turning point of our season. We go down and we go down 1-3 with the schedule that's coming up and the shit
Yeah,
show
we're in big trouble.
we're in big trouble. So
I don't think. I think it's got less to do with 1-3. But if we go down and we lose to Atlanta, the team they are right now, the quarterback Ryan is right now, the defense they have right now, the offense they don't have right now. If we go down there and we lose this game, we're talking about you can look realistically at this season and ask yourself if we're even going to. Well, we're talking about a potential team that would be worthy of a top 10 pick, a top 5 pick. And I'm not talking about record. I'm just talking about, results at that point. Because if you can't beat Atlanta, you barely beat the Giants, you get boat raced by the Bills. The Chargers look like a legit team right now. They might be a top 5 team in the league. And we thought we were going to catch them napping. And unfortunately we didn't. And they, gave us one.
You only have to be better than the rest of the division. And I did look today. Dallas plays against Carolina at home.
They have a weak ass schedule for the next 10 weeks.
Giants play at the Saints. Eagles play versus the Chiefs. So we could be looking, if we can pull off this one, we could be looking at being the only team that wins next weekend. So
But I think I saw somewhere that the Cowboys don't play another playoff team until week 11.
So you know what they're saying down in Atlanta right now, right? If we can't win this game at home against that horrible
It's true.
team, our season is over. I was curious about some stat comparisons, and I don't do a lot of stat stuff, but our points offensively, points per game, we're 21st at like 20.3. They're 29th at like 19 something, I think. In yards, we're 20th, they're 27th, but defensively, they are giving up 31.3 points per game. We're giving up 30.7. We're right there. We're right there with them. In yards, they're giving up like 60 yards a game less than we are. They're 19th. We are 31st. Yards doesn't mean anything, but it's an indicator that we are on an even par with the Atlanta Falcons right now.
Well, to be fair, they've played a
Tampa
much
Bay.
different schedule.
They played Tampa Bay.
they beat the Eagles, or excuse me, they got crushed by the Eagles.
They got boat raced
They
by
got
the
crushed
Eagles.
by Tampa, and they beat the Giants on the last drive.
As did we.
Yes.
Did you see that Falcons Giants game?
Yes.
The Giants had it was deja vu because Adoree Jackson had the interception to ice the game in the end zone, and it went
Oops.
right through his hands.
So I have the game plan, man. It's really simple. We're 9th in the NFL in the red zone. Did you guys know that? Which is incredible,
Yes.
really.
We just don't get
We
there.
just got to get to the red zone.
And we got to keep
Get to
the
the
other
red zone.
team out of our fucking red zone. Our problem is not the offense.
Again,
We're stingy in the red zone too, though. I mean, even on defense, we're pretty stingy. I think I don't know what we are, but I think we might be 9th or 10th in the red zone on defense. We just can't stop anybody in between the 20s, and we can't do anything but move it, between the 20s.
Yeah, we give up a lot of field goals too, but we give up these long drives. My God, it just sucks the life out of
Well,
it.
And I think I saw a stat. I think we're giving up almost 60% on third down.
Yeah, we did in this last game.
It's
We were
those third and
68%.
converts that we can't defend.
We're giving up third down conversions and we're not making our own third down conversions. We're giving
Oh.
up 3rd and 16s and we're not converting 3rd and 3s. It just,
Oh my God. And you want to talk here? Let's loop back to Scott Turner. Can I see another empty set on 3rd and 2, please?
You know how many teams do that? I'm not like trying to pick on you with the Scott Turner thing,
I
but that's
know.
like so not uncommon in the NFL anymore.
but I
But
don't
guess what? We're
understand
not
why.
good. We can't be like other teams.
We have
I'm
to be.
fine with doing that. I'm fine with doing that. Just roll Heineke out every time.
Right. Or something.
Because they get it 9 times out of 10. Just roll him out. He'll get it.
Right. Because you have the threat to run as your quarterback. So there's the
I'm with
threat.
you.
But don't eliminate the entire one half of your offense. You eliminate when you run empty set on 3rd and 2. 3rd and 2 is the best down to have because the entire playbook is open. And instead we say, guess what? We're going to throw it. That's what's going to happen. Drop in the zone because Cam Sims is going to drop the ball.
Atlanta's does not have an interception this season.
Do we?
Yes, William
Yeah.
Jackson.
That's right.
Jackson got one against the Giants.
Turnovers are killing us again, right? We gave up 3 and got none. You're not
We
going to
had
win that
4.
way.
We had 4. We had 2 fumbles and 2 picks. We just got one of those back.
That's right.
The sad part about all of this is I'm hearing you guys go back and forth about all these problems, third down problems, can't get off the field, et cetera, et cetera. We've been having these problems
For 30 years.
forever. And that's the thing that I keep thinking about. Rivera said it several times over the course of the summer. He warned people. He said, I'm not sure if we're quite there yet. And that little bit of improvement, that little string of success that we had a year ago, I think it convinced some of these players that we are there yet. And they're getting a little bit of a reality check. And I'm kind of questioning and wondering, are we really seeing a team that's on the rise like we thought it was? Or are we just blind as to what true improvement really is? I don't know.
We've taken a big step back since the end of last season, and that's a concern to me.
Well, here's the thing. To Paul's point, though, have we though, Mark?
I-
You know what?
Defensively, yes.
Back was our
Defensively,
competition
yes.
level. But
Well, yeah.
but it hasn't. We gave up 580 yards to the Buccaneers in the last game of the season. Everybody, and I heard JP was talking about this on the radio today. Everybody talks about that game like it was some sort of a moral victory. We gave up 200 yards rushing and 380 yards passing. Like, let's be honest. It's not like we held them and they beat us by a field goal and the final score was 17-16. You know what I'm saying? I loved every minute of that. Well, I loved a lot of that game and I appreciated a lot of that game because there was a lot to be happy about, but it's not like we shut down Tom Brady.
No, and then
And
we sent,
even-
and then go ahead, Bum.
Well, I was going to say, and then on the end of the season when we went on that tear and won all those games, it's not like we were playing against the NFL's best.
We
and
beat
brightest at that
Ben
point in time.
DiNucci.
Yeah, we were
And-
playing against lower tier teams
Correct.
because we had a 3rd place or a 4th place schedule last year, and and they were all beat up. So I mean, they
And-
didn't even have their starters.
Philly literally pulled their starting quarterback and said, hey, here's the game because we don't want to win. We want a better draft pick. Sorry for the vent, but it's just
No, and that's all fair. That's all fair. But you have to take as a starting point the end of last year. Rivera knew what we had, and they spent an off season trying to figure out how to improve it. They spent the number 1 pick on a linebacker, and all the moves that they've made. We're not going to go through all of them again. He knows, and Jack Del Rio knows, and knew then that we still had to keep getting better. But we didn't even really. It doesn't look to me like whatever changes they tried to make to improve haven't happened. No, if they're going to happen, it needs to start happening quickly, or we're going to have another really long season.
well, here's where my mind goes to. And tell me if I'm crazy, but think about it. Let's zoom out of this world a little bit. And let's take a look at the change the vision. All of the fans want us to win in 2021. We want to be the surprise team in 2021. We want to be that guy that, what the hell, Mike Greenberg said, They're the second coming of the 49ers a couple years ago where they made the Super Bowl.
That was the kiss of death, by the way, when he said that.
But I'm wondering if
that needs an
Rivera
answer.
and
Yeah.
Del Rio and Turner are building and looking at this thing, and 2021 is just another season. They're looking at their window at 22 and 23.
I think that they better be. They better be, right? That you want to win while you're getting better, but yeah,
The only contradicting point to that theory is why do you bring in Fitzpatrick?
well, they weren't sure what they had with Taylor.
Yeah, but
I mean-
if this year is a building year, what do you care?
Well, but you have to have a competent quarterback to build. If you're going to build an offense, you've got to have a guy
That's
who can run it.
true, because you need the rest of the offense to develop.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, Derek. You can't just throw the team to the wolves. And in the NFL, if you
You
don't have
have to-
competent quarterbacking, you're throwing the entire team to the wolves mentally and emotionally. Guys aren't going to want to be here anymore. They want our draft picks that we want to keep to want to sign up for a second hitch in Washington, just like
Allen did in the offseason.
Yeah, just like we did with John Allen, right? Now it's Daron Payne. We want Daron Payne to want to stay here. Well, if he's coming off a 2-15 season, how emotionally invested is he? I mean, this is an Alabama guy. Good Lord, he's lost more games. He's already lost more games now than he's lost in his entire life.
To your point, if he's coming off a 2-15 season where it was abundantly clear that the coach didn't care. So you pay Fitz on a 1-year deal, and that's a good argument to that. You pay Fitz on a 1-year deal to show the team that, yes, I do want to win football games still. But I don't think that they have invested in 2021 as being the year.
No.
Well, it might be different if we'd won the Matt Stafford.
I agree. That is the
And they made a
linchpin.
serious
They
attempt. to
did.
get
They
Matt
tried it.
Stafford. So, I mean, I think sometimes we forget that what we get and who we have, it's not Madden. It's a limited pool. Like everyone's competing for the same players. Sometimes we win, but more often than not, we don't win those competitions. So I think I think they're just limited. And I think you're exactly right that we all had inflated expectations. Last year was like a perfect storm. Anytime you're winning with the quarterback play and win the division with the quarterbacks that we had, because Heineke only played a quarter and then the playoff game. It wasn't like he carried us. We won with nobody at quarterback.
No, he
And
played.
won-
He played. I think he played more than a half of the Carolina game because I think he threw for almost 200.
maybe,
yards.
but it wasn't like he took the team on his back and took us
Right.
to the
Yeah.
playoffs.
Yeah.
He inherited that, and we won with guys that couldn't play at quarterback all year long, or we won enough. So it might just be one of those years where it ain't a miracle every year, every season,
But
and
that would explain Jamin Davis over Owusu Koromora, who's, by the way, the top-rated rookie linebacker in the NFL right now. Koromora, sorry.
so this is another game where we're playing. Remember our great prediction, specifically my great prediction, that our overwhelming coaching experience would triumph over the Chargers' inexperience, which didn't work out so well for me. But this is another game where we have a first-time head coach, Arthur Smith, and then Dave Ragone is a first-time offensive coordinator. And I didn't know this, or I hadn't remembered this, but both those guys were coaches in DC. Arthur Smith was back in the Gibbs 2 era. He was a quality control coach and a scout. And then Dave Ragone was a quality control coach back in 2015.
You know the bloodlines go a lot deeper than that, right? You know who Arthur Smith's dad is?
I do not.
Fred Smith, CEO of FedEx.
Oh, yeah. So
The guy that just got shuttled out of town.
So
Wow.
I think it's a revenge game.
Yeah, well, you know who the assistant general manager is in Atlanta?
Oh, it's somebody who used to be in our front office.
Kyle Smith,
Yep.
the guy nobody wanted to let go. Now, I don't think that really matters. I don't. You don't think they're going to coach differently, but man, God, would that taste terrible if they had that victory on their
Yeah.
palate where
They've got Dean Pease, who's 72, and he's been a DC for every team in the NFL, just about except for Washington. So I guess it balances out.
Paul,
So
you
what do we
can.
think's going to happen, guys? What's going to happen on Sunday?
Well, I've got my little notes on the Falcons. I talked about what I think we need to do with Matt Ryan. They need to get him uncomfortable. The man doesn't want to get hit, and it shows. And if they can get him off his mark a little bit and make him hurry things, we should do okay.
Who's their backup, Mark? Do we know? I don't know.
No idea.
Hang
No
on.
idea. But maybe
Let me
we don't
Google
want the backup in there. We might want
Bob, I can see Bob's Google window pop up.
we might want a shaky Matt
I
Ryan out
had
there.
Atlanta open here, so I've got the roster available just with a click of the button. Backup quarterback is Josh Rosen.
Oh yeah, bring on the backup.
And AJ McCarron. They got McCarron too.
Yeah, but he's IR'd.
Oh, and you know who their third stringer is?
Felipe Franks.
Felipe Franks. There's a name everybody should remember.
I would like to see him in the game on Sunday.
What we don't want is Kyle Pitts to have his coming out party.
Well, there you go.
My
Yes.
fantasy roster begs to differ.
No.
You can bench him
Well,
right
this
now.
is why we drafted
I'm
Jamin
playing you this
Davis.
week.
We drafted Jamin Davis because he covered and shut down Pitts in the one time they faced each other in college. That's why he's here. We may see a lot more of Mr. Davis this week, and I hope it's not chasing after the big old tall guy.
I haven't looked at Pitt's tape from his college days, so I have no clue how he was used. But I have been reading the news clippings about how Atlanta's using him, and they are lining his ass up everywhere.
Mhm.
He's playing split out wide.
Hey,
He's playing up
just
against
think
the line of
Jordan Reed.
scrimmage. What?
He's Jordan Reed reincarnate.
Well, but without the concussions, so he.
Well, yeah, but I mean, how he's used.
Well, he's averaging 4 catches a game and hasn't had a touchdown yet. So as long as they can keep lining him up,
Yep.
He
As long
should
as
have had a
someone-
touchdown last game, actually.
He's been
He got
targeted.
held.
Sorry, Derek. He's been targeted 17 times in the 3 games, a little under about 12 and a half yards per catch, 11 catches. Their running game, their starter, Mike Davis, is just a guy he
Carolina
does.
guy.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of shake and bake. He doesn't scare me. The guy on that team that scares me the most
Patterson.
is Patterson, because they'll bring him out of the backfield. That guy runs like a crazy man. He's a hair on fire guy. I don't want to see him getting a lot of touches. Beyond that, they're leading. Calvin Ridley's the leading receiver. He's got 20 catches.
That dude's a legit.
He's legit, but to me, it all comes down to getting in Ryan's face. If we have another game where we're talking about not getting pressure on the quarterback, we're going to be moping on Monday morning.
This is probably the weakest skill position team outside of Ridley, the weakest skill position team we played so far, or group we played so far.
Probably the weakest we're going to play all year, John. Look at the rest of the schedule. I mean, Philadelphia's weaker than they've been in years, but they still have skill positions.
Yep.
So does New York. I think this is the weakest skill position team we're going to play this season.
That's why I was talking about this game, is saying if you don't win this game, if you don't win this one, we're in trouble.
We might be in trouble anyway, but we're definitely in trouble if we don't win this.
Right.
So all
Yeah, but
that
this
said,
could be one of those get right games. Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
no worries. All that said, in regards to their talent and how this might be, potentially the weakest roster that we've faced to this point, wouldn't it be the perfect opportunity for our team to take a lead in the game right from the get-go for once? Because I think if we do that, we can maybe see a different side of our team. We might be able to see, well, how does this team operate with the lead? Do we look completely different than we have in these other scenarios where we've been chasing for a large extent of the game? And when you're chasing, you press. We might have a little bit of a different narrative in regards to this team if we can play within ourselves and operate with a lead. And Atlanta gives us a great opportunity to hopefully do that.
Maybe Taylor Heineke can be a game manager for a change.
That's right.
I don't think anybody's actually answered the question. What's going to happen?
All right, call him off. Call him off, Derek.
All right, Paul, since you've talked the most this podcast, you're first.
Okay. So I think I'm fairly confident that we're going to bounce back and win this week. We saw this team deal with adversity a year ago. They started out 2-7. They were awful. If that's not adversity, I don't know what is. We know everything in regards to Rivera with what he had to go through last year. The mess that we had at the quarterback position a year ago. It was a season filled with adversity, and we were able to find our way through it. We've experienced a lot of adversity early on in the season, and I think we're going to be able to lean on the experience from a year ago and have a bounce back type game this coming week. It's not going to be easy. Atlanta does have some offensive weapons that can give us some problems. Typically, that tight end position has always been a nightmare for us to defend, as you guys mentioned a few minutes ago. I think we're going to come away victorious, but it's going to be a very tight game. I'll say 23-21 Washington.
All right, on to you, Bob.
The problem here is that I desperately want to be ridiculously optimistic, even though I watched the entire game on Sunday. And after that, I have no reason to be optimistic. But I don't know. I feel like at the moment, the Atlanta roster is, even if we just look at the paper, the Atlanta roster is ridiculously bad compared to our roster. I'm banking on a certain level of pride and righteous anger this weekend. I think the defensive front plays angry.
So is this when you have your buddies over for a sleepover and you lose every game of Madden, and then the next day you play your little brother so you can beat him up a couple times?
Maybe, yeah, that's that. There's a certain level of that to this, yeah. But I think we see Chase Young and Montez Sweat actually get onto the board this week in terms of sacks.
By the way, Sweat has a sneaky couple.
Yeah, Sweat's already there, but I think it is not beyond the realms of possibility for this team to go Philly on Atlanta this weekend and have, how many did we have against Philly in the opener last year? 8?
Mm-hmm.
7 or 8. Yep.
Yeah. I can see a fairly big number. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I see the possibility for that because Matt Ryan is so sedentary. Now the difference there is that he is a savvy veteran guy who knows how to get rid of the football, but he's already gone down 7 times this year. He's been hit a whole lot more than that. I think the guys get home this weekend. Now, having said that, I think we're going to give up some plays to Kyle Pitts. I fully expect Kyle Pitts to have his first touchdown this weekend because we just don't seem to be able to handle tight ends, and I don't care who it is. Now, maybe Del Rio puts Davis on Pitts and Davis takes him right out of the game. But we're not talking about a college coordinator designing a game here. We're talking about an NFL coordinator designing a game here. And there's a difference. And Davis really hasn't done a lot of coverage this year. So I think Heineke has a pretty good game. I think our offense has a pretty good game. I'm going to be very curious to see if Curtis Samuel plays this weekend. That's one of those things we really haven't talked about. He practiced in full pads today. Does he play? And if he plays, is he a big part of the game plan or just another guy? Because we're really not getting any production at the wideout position outside of McLaren. And if we start getting some production there, that's only going to make McLaren a better wideout, right? They're going to have to pay more attention. It's also going to take some pressure off Thomas. I don't know. I'm seeing a bigger score line. I'm thinking 30 to 21.
With a dub, huh? A 9-point victory.
I'd love to see a 9-point. I'd actually love to see a double-digit victory. My, the really optimistic side of me wanted to say 30-17, but
That's a big one. All right, Mark, what do you got, brother?
I said it last week. I'll say it again. I do expect us to win this game. I think we aren't better than the good teams. I think we're better than the bad teams. I don't think we are a bad team, or at least not as bad as we've looked. I think the defense gets off the schneid a little bit. I don't know that we'll sack Ryan a lot, but I think we'll disrupt him. I think Jack Del Rio sees the same film, and if a knucklehead like me can see how shaky he looks in the pocket with traffic around him, Del Rio can see it and try to take advantage of it. I think we tip some passes. I think we turn them over a couple of times, which we have not done this year. We have one turnover, one pick. I see that getting a little bit better. I see us getting a defensive touchdown and putting the offense on a short field, maybe twice. And I see the offense doing enough with those opportunities to hold them down. And I'll go like 28-17. I think it's a fairly solid victory, and we may not actually have to bite our fingernails on the final play of the game for a change on a
I
win.
started biting them on Tuesday.
Yeah. 28-17, good guys.
All right, John, what do you got, buddy?
Well, I really thought last week against Buffalo, delusionally perhaps, I thought we would shock the world and we'd finally, our D-line would start looking like the D-line from last year, and Heineke would surprise them, and that didn't happen. So I'm going to change my approach a little bit. And I predict the message that I'm receiving, even though my heart says don't predict Washington to win again because it's not paying off for you. The message that I'm receiving is that we're going to get some turnovers in this game, and we're going to start seeing some of that ball hawking that we saw at the end of last year, and we'll kind of get them on their heels and win by a touchdown. So I'm thinking 27-20. That's what I'm thinking.
Is this the tinfoil Kreskin?
Nice prop, my friend. Nice prop.
I like it. I thought he was worried Dan Snyder was trying to read his mind or something.
Yeah, I must have $9 beers.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not as bullish as you guys. And even though everything in my body believes that we're that good of a team, but we have not proven that yet. But I can't pick against the team that I've grown to love for whatever reason. I don't know. I see a repeat of the Giants game, something very similar. I think we end up edging them out, but I think it's last second field goal, maybe a late turnover to win by 2. Something that's a little uncomfortable for a lot of the game. Final score, I'll put 21-20, Washington.
Oh, Lord.
And it's going to be one of those games where we look back and we just say, oh my God, we got to win. And we're going to find every reason to justify being excited about it. I will, because a win's a win. It was a win. But in the reality of it, I haven't seen enough on either side of the ball to lead me to believe we can control anything. And that's really bad. And I'm usually the eternal optimist, and maybe I'm doing a little emotional hedge here. So I'm hoping that I'm, betting against us and I'm wrong. But 27-20, we find a way to win late. Or
You know what all
20.
all of this suggests? We all pick the team to win. All of this just reminds me more and more that Dan Snyder is the ultimate master of selling hope. We are so desperate for a win as a group here.
So we also all believe that if we pick against our team, we're going to somehow change the outcome of the game.
So since we all picked us to win, I think we have to agree that everyone wears a funny hat on the next pod if we don't win. That's just going to happen.
Well, I've got some funny hats. I'll sit here. You know what? I'll do the whole podcast with
Bob's breaking out the bowler, man. There you go.
Good, let's go.
I'll do the whole podcast in the Redskins helmet.
All my good lids are upstairs. I'm not going to go get them.
All right. Well, hopefully we won't need them. We can wear those in our leisure time.
That's right. All right, boys. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks,
Gentlemen,
guys.
here's